All right, I'm going to go ahead and start our discussion today. We are working on quality management planning and getting a better handle on what you're doing. QMP is a major focus of the department. They're asking for QMPs on their 2-day surveys. They've even asked for QMPs on infection control surveys and the infection control plan, which is a part of your QMP. So we've been working slowly but surely through this and got 2 more planned for June and July. And then some specialty topics, one on occurrences and plans of corrections, and then one about putting the whole thing together. So one thing, if you guys will take some time in the next few days, on our website, we have opened up a new guide, electronic guide for families and professionals and seniors themselves, services. And please check your information, make sure it's accurate. We're trying really hard to make this bias-free database, so it's not like a place for mom and those others that have our advertising and motives behind it. There's no charge for the basic data. If you want to do more than what's basic, there is information in there about how you can add more and advertise your business. And so this is our big initiative for the rest of this year and next, is to get this thing really robust. If you want to talk to Eileen, she'll be back from vacation after the 1st of June, or you can email her from our website. But please look at it and please make sure you've done your membership. Okay. So I want to talk a little bit today about some things that I think we don't do enough of, and that is celebrating that we have made 14 months since COVID hit Colorado. And we've had a lot more successes than what the news media and the politicians and CDPHE like to admit. So we've had some really small successes. We've had some pretty large ones. And one of them is in the small assisted livings. We've had really minimal outbreaks in residents. We've had some problems with staff, but not in so much with residents. And right now we are doing a great job in getting residents vaccinated. We've also have grown. So one of the things that I've been excited about is we have become a Colorado community in assisted living, and we're getting the voice out there more, and we're getting feedback to the department more by all of the voice by all of Colorado. So it's been really heartwarming to me. We've become quite creative, and we've opened a bunch of new doors. So we have gotten things in Colorado that a lot of states around us have not gotten at all, and some really good blessings and some pain in the ass headaches with trying to deal with COVID, mask, gowns, all of that nonsense. And other states have already thrown it in the trash. So like I said, some good things, some things that drive you crazy, but we've had some pretty good successes. And one of the things that we've been able to do here at CGS was to continue to build people's toolboxes. So there's a national group I belong to called PTAC. And so these are some of the things they talk about a lot, is celebrate every success you can get and build on it. Stay creative, don't let your doors get closed. Remain focused on the people you serve and keep your toolbox open, because every day you might need a new screwdriver, a new hammer, or something else in your toolbox you've never had before. So far we've been doing some work, and I've talked about things like mission statement, core values, having an org chart, talking about who you are, using that same discussion point in your brochures. And then what current projects, what goals do you have to finish this year out, and what do you want to do for 2022? What are some of the best practices that you have learned and been able to sustain without getting gray? How are you problem solving, and how do you make that work easier and less stressful than going around and spinning? And then learning who's all involved and making sure that everybody in your staff has a role in contribution to quality and to the processes. So in COVID-19, I've been working a lot with people on their notebooks, their policies, their internal policies, their data gathering. How do you keep the information from Mako? How do you keep the information on your vaccines? What do you need? What does the people at the department need? What does OSHA need? And when you have that in order, then if they need something, it's not stressful for you because it's already in order. And that's called crosswalking. And the part of today that I'm talking about is this whole role of crosswalking. So right now, we were supposed to have a meeting yesterday to talk about whether we could drop the public health order and put it on the shelf and then grab it if COVID broke out. And they canceled the meeting. By 5 o'clock last night, Mesa County went into panic mode because they went over their 5%. And they had allowed masks off for about 2 weeks. And so they have a college out there that was part of it. Long-term care was part of it. General community was part of it. And the schools, especially the high schoolers, were part of it. So the alarm sounded. So I don't know where we're going to be, but we'll know next Wednesday. So right now, public health order is still in place. Do not change anything you're doing. Make sure your staff are wearing masks full shifts. Make sure the masks are over the nose and mouth. Make sure they're hand washing a lot. Making sure they're managing the med cart and their infection control measures, especially when passing out meds. The cool thing is if your house is fully vaccinated, all residents that are fully vaccinated may resume regular dining and regular activities, and they can join together. Anybody that's not fully vaccinated will have to eat socially distanced or participate in activities socially distanced and wear a mask, except when they're eating or drinking. And then staff, if we could get the staff fully vaccinated, I think the state would calm down a little bit. But right now, that has been a real challenge all over the state. On the 12th of May, we got a new newsletter, and I was really upset with that newsletter. They wanted us to come out of surgical masks and go to N95s. And not only did our agency, but multiple other agencies really push back on them and said, absolutely not going there. They're super expensive. And we have kept our bargain and wore the mask. N95s are for coronary care, ICU, respiratory wings, rehabs, where they belong, not in our industry. So we are still fighting about that, and we'll see what happens next week. Because the letter I got from an upper person in state said they were reviewing the information and would make just best practice decision in public health in the next week to 10 days. Want to bring your attention to flu reports as well. In the portal, when you get that thing open, about halfway on your right is a tab called vaccinations. That's where your flu report goes in. All you got to do is put in your numbers. And so the thing that I kept asking, couldn't get a straight answer on, is what date were you wanting that? And they finally came up with current. So current number of residents that had flu vaccines from August last year to current, or staff, and make sure you have a notebook or a file documenting those flu vaccines. And they look very much like the COVID vaccine. So you have a lot number and the date of the flu shot. So knowing that we didn't do flu shots worth of deaths in our industry, I start calling all the different local county public health departments to see if they had flu vaccine. A great deal of them do have it. So in your county, you can actually catch up your staff on flu vaccines, and it will be good for a year. And it's actually not a bad idea to actually do it right now, because the flu has finally came back in to the country. So Australia had a major outbreak 2 weeks ago, but they've been really keeping COVID down, but they had a major outbreak in flu. And so it's already worked its way up and coming around in its normal course up the African coast over to Europe, and then it'll fly over to this area. So if you can get your staff to get their flu shots and get caught up, you can go ahead and take credit for that. If they refuse, remember that we're hitting a 90% marker. So I really don't know what the state's going to say about this at this point, because I think they're concentrating on COVID, but they're also not letting go of flu. So remember, flu vaccines are mandatory, and only people that have documented egg allergies. That means they can't eat bakery goods, they can't eat bread, they can't have regular eggs. They actually have a true protein allergy documented by an allergist, because they've had the things they put on people's backs. Then you can accept that. as an allergy, but not because they had trouble with the flu shot before. So it's kind of like the COVID vaccine. Some of us really struggled through the second shots. Other people did really well. So don't take that. Now, religious objections is definitely true in some religious communities. And so if they want to document that they belong to a certain religious group and that they do not believe in vaccinations, then they will have, they'll never get out of the mask. They'll be wearing masks as long as they're employed. I think that's going to be the next step that is going to happen. So please make sure you do your vaccination record on the portal, and also make sure that you have your file or your flu notebook, however you've been managing that in the past. Okay. So some things to think about. We have a survey guide. If you don't have your hands on it, you can email me, or I put a bunch of stuff together for today's webinar. I can't remember. I don't think I put that in there. We've put it out multiple times, but I do have a copy of it. And these are the focal points that are important to the department right now and what they're doing on the 2-day survey. What I've been telling people is go through that survey and use a pencil. If you've got it, cool. If you need to do improvements, put an I by it. If you don't have it at all, put SOS next to it. You need to tackle and get all of that stuff done. And so a lot of the things that they have been really looking, and at the stuff I've seen for the last month, is they're looking for that general infection control training and retraining, hand washing especially. Pretty much they're looking to see that you're doing it almost on a monthly basis. And then they're looking at cart management, cross-contamination, and then they're looking at general infection control issues like flu, norovirus, C. diff, how you manage your kitchen, those types of things. And then they're also looking at UTIs and then prostate infections, skin infections. So they want you to have a really good general infection control training. Probably the biggest focal point after COVID is that. Then they're looking at resident services and making sure that your service plans match your service agreement, match actually what you do for the resident. And so I had a family call today saying their mother lives in this place and they do absolutely nothing for her. So breaking it back down, walked it back. Does she get meals? Yes. Does she get her room cleaned? Yes. Do they do her laundry? Do they change her linens? Yes, yes. And so what they were upset about is her toenails had not been cut in a year. That was really what the complaint was about. And so we hadn't even thought about toenails. And so again, we contacted a girl that does toenail care in our industry here in Denver anyway, to see if she's back in business, and she is, and set up some appointment to go get this lady's feet soaked and see if it's going to take 3 or 4 weeks to get the nails under control from the sounds of them. So make sure that you're checking those little things, and that skin's in good shape. People are at least reasonably content, busy, feel like they can visit their family, and that they understand resident rights and house rules. And if you haven't updated your house rules or resident rights, you might want to talk to me, because again, those have been in quite a few different surveys as a plan of correction. The other class that you need to do is make sure all your staff have the newest training in elder abuse. You can see it on Relias has one that's kind of global. I teach one that's more Colorado centered, and I mix with that with person centered, and I do small groups. Usually I like to keep it under 10 for those 2 topics. All right, last month, something came to my attention that I did not know existed, and it's called a critical incident report. And this is a state manual and an incident report that the state has put together for any time you have a situation. So pretty much anything you put in the occurrence manual, you're going to need to do as a critical incident report. The report form is decent. And actually, my opinion is dump your old incident reports and use this new one, because it'll take care of you in all the areas you need to deal with it. So a critical incident report, I talked about it last month, so I have quite a few slides on it. And then, again, I'm glad to help you, but you should have it in your electronic library, or Bible, as Eileen calls them, and you should have the occurrence manual in your Bible as well. So in the CIR, that report, if anything goes down, you must share it with the ombudsman. And if you have anybody on HCBS services of any sort, then that would go to the single entry point in the case manager. And then if you have anybody in hospice, it would go to them. Anybody with InnovAge, it would go to them and the doctor's office. And so again, this critical incident report, why reinvent and do the wheel 15 times? Then you can fill it out once, send it to the appropriate parties. On the bottom of the tool, you can document who you sent it to and the date. And so it's pretty cool. And it's, just something newer that we were supposed to be doing for, I guess, over a year, but I sure did not know about it until it showed up in somebody's life. So let's get back to thinking about the areas in quality. So this is a long list of stuff that generally are probably the highlights or the top points that you need to deal with. And so fire safety, there's new regulations for fire. They were published just here a couple of months ago, and we've had some fire inspections, and they have forced facilities to do more work on their sprinkler systems, putting them out in their patios, doing new water tanks, draining their water tanks, sterilizing their water tanks, and refilling them, which costs about $300. Things like that. So fire safety is a big one. They're looking at maintenance logs and records, indoors and outdoors. What are you doing? Did you paint? Did you change an appliance? Did you repair a toilet? Did you fix tile? They're looking for surfaces. Are they even? Are they uneven? Is there a fall risk? They cited one facility because they had that spring snow we had. They didn't clear the back door for an exit, and cited them for not removing the snow. So, I mean, just, that's, where their head is, safety, 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 okay? They're looking at menus again and making sure that residents are participating in the foods they want to eat and having a say. Activity records that are meaningful. There's some cool new stuff happening all over the community. And I've sent out, I got a really cool thing on some opportunity for some free dementia activities. And if you have a dementia community and you didn't get that email from the state, I'm pretty sure I kept it, and I'm glad to share it with you. They're looking at updated service plans. Remember, those are due yearly, and you either do them, I wouldn't do them all at once, and I'd break it out, but make sure you put it into your calendar when somebody's due for the next year or a change of condition. How you're handling Mars, how do you handle your meds, reconciliations? Is your over the counters appropriately marked? Or do you have orders for everything? Are you discontinuing meds appropriately? Are you destructing meds appropriately? All of that type of stuff. They're looking at your kitchen and water temperatures, food holding, dishwasher compliance. If you're under 19 beds in a residential house, you do not have to have a commercial dishwasher, but your dishwasher does have to meet the temperature that is on the literature for that dishwasher. If you don't know what that is, find it in Google and print that page and put it in your maintenance record log that this is the water temperature after 2 minutes. Do not let anybody just turn the dishwasher on, turn it off, and take a temperature. It will not hit. It takes at least 2 minutes for regular domestic dishwashers to hit that number. But you should check it. If you haven't done it for a while, please check that out. They're going to look at your grievance and complaint log. When I do the training the beginning of June, that was in the same email that we sent out, I want to talk a lot about occurrences, grievances, and complaints and that type of stuff, and I'll go more in detail there. They've been reviewing HR records to meet Chapter 7, orientation to meet Chapter 7, your 30-day training, and then guys, June the 14th, we have a whole new set of training policies and guidelines. And so that will be published and probably on this, the department's website. I'm thinking the 13th or the 14th of June, and then we're accountable to that new training. And I will be probably talking about that in June or July. Then they're looking at resident handbooks. They're looking at staff handbooks. They're looking at brochures. They're looking at your website. If your website says you have a nurse on 24/7, which we have found people have put on there, that has to come down. And only, even some nursing homes can't hit that 24/7 anymore. So if you have a nurse consulting, program, or or a relationship with home health, you might want to rethink about how you're talking about your RN relationships. And then last but not least, they've been really scrutinized rent and service contracts. So just as a reminder, rent has separate statutes in Colorado, and that's your petty for your Medicaid clients and what they're supposed to give you on a monthly basis. And then in your service contracts is what do you do for the money that you are receive? Or if your client needs more care and you kick them up to level 2, then how many, you have to give 30 days notice that there's going to be an increase of cost. Same family called me today because there was an increase of cost, but no communication about the increase, just a bill. So like I said, communicate, communicate, communicate. Super important. All right, so now you've got a little bit of a headache, and I'm going to probably contribute to that. But I want to start talking more about what is a QAPI, or Quality Assessment Process Improvement. We all do them. We do them in our personal life. We do them in our business life. We do them in our financial life, because you reconciliate your checking account, you pay your bills, you don't write checks that are going to bounce. You make sure you have enough money for your water bill, your electric, food, those basic necessities. Those are all types of just everyday quality assessment programs that you use. But in our industry, we're going to talk more about some of the things that impacts us the most. In this list that I just gave you, all are part of the work you do as an administrator. And I tell people all the time that call here and talk about, I want to be an administrator. I talk about the scope of practice and how intense it is these days, and that it's not for the faint of heart, because there's so many things you've got to pay attention to. So in the QAPI, we're going to start out with a reminder of how do you start breaking down where you are in the scheme thing. I like to use SWOT. So what's your strengths? What areas are you have threats? So if you had increase of falls, did somebody walk out the door with Vicodin or any other controlled substances? Did you get a survey that didn't go well? Those are all threats. Is your census too low? You don't have enough money coming in. That's a threat. Weaknesses are things that you're continuously working on and striving to get to gold standards. And so you just have to continue and continue until you find out what talks to your staff and to yourself. You have to talk yourself into it first. And then your opportunities is, what do you want to do for the next year? How do you want your business to look? Do you want to expand? Do you want your reputation to be different? Do you want to hit this new model of star ratings? Do you want to have more relationships in the community so people are calling you for admissions instead of you going out and having to do all the marketing? What does it look like? Are you having too high a staff turnover? Because we know that that's been a headache. Now, Polis yesterday said that they're going to put people in money's lives if they go back to work full time. I thought it was only for the restaurant industry. Somebody said to me this morning it might be our industry as well. And if we get clarification, we'll let you guys know. Because that might be a way to get your staffing problems solved and help deal with this longevity. I believe that there are conditions of when they're going to get that money and what they have to meet. We also got an email today, and I've already responded that I want to be a part of the noise, but the state got some extra money that they weren't expecting. We have a chance, maybe, to do training on the state level for direct care providers. So they would get a certificate and they would take the courses either at a trade school, high school, or a community college. And then they would get a certificate, and we wouldn't have to go through that laborious orientation crap so much. And so I'm going to really push for that and see if we can get some of that money to do this project that we've been trying to get on board for over 2 years. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some sample things in SWOT that can happen. You'll notice in my circle that I put medication errors and I kind of shrunk it. And that's an indicator to say, maybe you've got this in really good control, but every once in a while things fall off the table. Or maybe you're really having a really increase of complaints because our office is receiving so many, it's crazy out there. And so maybe your complaints have gone up. And so that's taken a bigger piece of your energy than other things. Or your residents are not recovering and getting strong again. So your falls have gone up. Or your residents are misbehaving and they're just really, they're at each other's throat and they're tattletaling on each other. We've seen some really crazy behaviors in senior buildings and some things that have not been happening and then all of a sudden are happening. And so one building, the lady that lives on the second floor was complaining that her third floor roommate was stomping on the floor all night and dragging furniture and keeping her up all night and turning the music on full blast. Things like that, things that I just haven't seen for quite some time. So again, when you're thinking about this, is your pie may not be equal. And the purpose that I built this for was I want you to think about what is really driving you bonkers right now and what are some things you need to work on, but not as heavy an issue as other things might be. And so when you're building your own SWOTs, try to color code it or try to do something with it that so that you can what's first, what's on second, what's on third, and kind of get an idea of how to prioritize what you got to hit first. Okay. So you're starting a plan. And in this plan, I recommend highly you take it in small parts. If you try to do too much at once, it just won't work. And if you take it in small parts and you have actionable steps, and in the process of doing quality management, you put goals and time dates in. So for instance, we want to open up all outdoor visitation without appointments at any time, and that families can come at lib. Only little kids need to wear masks if all the visitors are fully vaccinated. And if they're not that fully vaccinated, they need to keep their mask on. And they still need to sign in, still need their temperature taken, but we want to open it up more. So you have to have a plan how you're going to do that. Or if you are allowing room visits, how are you going to clean that room after they leave? Do you have enough staffing? Which, I haven't talked to anybody who's got enough staffing to actually clean rooms. How are you going to be able to give your staff a vacation and be able to cover the time they're off? How are you doing these things? And so when I was building this, I'd had a pretty rough day that day. And I was thinking maybe it just would be good for a trip to Hawaii. So let's break this down into some small parts, okay? First of all, think about what is the problem. When you are asking yourself this question, you got to break it down into little small concepts. So who's the audience? Who's it impacting? Is it your staff? Is it your residents? Is it your family? Is it your relationships in the community? Is it you have more bills than you have money coming in? What is the audience? What do you got to deal with? Okay. When did it start? And like so many of us, we've let a lot of things go for quite a long time. For me personally, my yard. So I just started tackling my yard again yesterday. And I'm hoping by the end of the month to have it all back to easy management and normal and, be caught up with it. So if I'd have kept up with it last year and did what I normally do in the fall, I wouldn't be in this mess that I'm in today. So you have to be honest with yourself. When did it start? And you may not know the answer to that. What do you know about the problems? So again, my yard. Holy cow, I've got some weeds I've never seen before and some sort of weird ground covery thing that has hit my backyard that I've got to figure out how do you get rid of it and keep rid of it. And so what is the problem and what can I replace it with? How can I fix this? So some of the impact, how much is it going to cost me? How much time is it going to take? Do I have the expertise or the ability or even the physical ability to handle it? Or do I have to hire somebody? Okay. Who's going to be involved? Who's going to help me, or who do I have to notify? And how's that going to look? Can I break it down into manageable parts and then get that part done, move to the next part, move to the next part? And then who's going to spearhead it? One of the things I see in our industry is the assisted living administrators think they got to do it all. You don't have to do it all. You can delegate, but if you delegate, you have to check in. And so a lot of times people delegate and somebody says, oh yeah, I'll take care of it. And it never happens. And then the administrator is irritated and goes and does it themselves. You have to hold people accountable to that. And then also always remember that you got to have a budget. and you got to be able to work within that budget. Okay. All right. So I know you can do this, even if you feel like you want to have a temper tantrum. Okay. So part 2, how in the world did I get to where I am, and what created all this hassle? And it's called root cause analysis. If you understand this question, you will get things so cleaned up so quickly. So like this crazy little ground covery thing that I've got that I've never seen before, I don't understand what it is, whether it's a fungi or something else. When I understand it and I know how to treat it, it'll take the stress down. And then I've got flowers coming back that I haven't seen in 5 years, and old bulbs and roses that I took out years ago that must have left some root in or something, that have just sprouted up, and all kinds of things that you have to think about. And so in our business side of it, you're working through, you're organizing it, and sometimes you might want to do a map. So mapping is a tool, and it's also known as a process, or is organization boxes, and there's a lot of different names for it. I like mapping because it allows me to kind of put on paper what I'm going to get done, and then I can cross that box off and what I'm going to get done next and what I'm going to get done next. And then if one of my nexts don't work, I can go back to the box before and say, what did I miss? And mapping has been a tool for me for many, many years that's very successful for me to get my thoughts down and organize them. And so I'm going to take an example of a situation, the one that I got today from the family with the toenails that was very upset. And so everything was wrong. But in reality, when we broke it down into parts, what was really wrong was the toenails and the lack of the management company or the staff to even think that that was important. Why would you not cut toenails for over a year and get those taken care of was negligence. And that could really backfire on them. So if they had had a 2-day survey and the surveyors came in and saw all these feet untaken care of, they would have gotten an immediate jeopardy tag possibly for neglect. And so again, you got to look at everything, got to look at all these little parts. So get your feet caught up, everybody. And then let's say you have, the house has been going great and you've done your fire drills, you're caught up, the house is in good shape physically, it's clean, and your COVID stuff is working, your notebook's working, Mako's working, you're getting all of your vaccines are all done, everybody's in good shape. You got all that done, then all you got to do now is monitor it. So, and you can go back and get some things done that you haven't had time to do. Also pay attention to see if there's any legal issues. So does all your residents have advanced directives? Does all of your DNRs, are they up to date? Is all of your doctor's orders up to date? Is anybody fallen off the wagon? If they're so, get it done. Do you have something structurally you need to do? You've got cracks in the cement, or you've got cement that has turned back into pebbles, and you're going to need to take that area out and relay it. Or you've got a patio area or a outdoor visitation area that needs painting, it needs sanded. I mean, take a good look with really critical eyes and then put it into your list of things and figure out, again, what's first, what's second, what's third. Now, I did put OSHA on here for a reason. If facilities are having an outbreak of 2 or more, OSHA will be reviewing you as well. It's a desk audit so far. I've not heard anybody have a face-to-face audit with the OSHA surveyor that's here in Denver. And the biggest problem we've had is now we've had 3 facilities where he's called and the staff hung up on him or thought it was a scam or didn't pass the message. And that really agitated him. And so when he gets a hold of the administrator, he is went down on their head heavily. You need to make sure that you get a memo out to all staff, anybody that answers the phone, that they take an appropriate message. And if this guy, I think his name's Manuel or Miguel or something close to that, says, this is OSHA and I need to speak to the administrator. And if you're not available right then, take his name and number and go find you. And get this done quickly, because he will send you in the email the list of stuff he needs. And again, it comes on infection control training, hand washing training. What is your policy on all of these? What's your infection control policies on COVID? What's your testing cycles? How did you do the testing? Do you have the same person doing the testing? What made you decide who was going to be tested or not? If you had two more or people break out, now you got to go to every 3 days. Is the health department notified? Are they involved? And he will ask you a ton of questions and then send you some forms to fill out. Please understand, OSHA has authority. They can activate a fine, and they can activate even more jeopardy issues and make your life crazy. They've been concentrating mostly on meat plants, food processing plants, restaurants, that type of thing. So we just had our first hepatitis A outbreak in Colorado, and we haven't had one of those in years. And so that's when people turn bright orange yellow. And so again, what happened? How did they handle it? What did the restaurant do? Did they close? Did they do the cleaning? All of that. OSHA will be involved. So OSHA, for most of us, we haven't had a lot of experience with OSHA. And so luckily, there are tools out there, and there's pretty good forms and pretty good explanations on their website. But they're in our industry. And if they get in your life, you will have more work to do. So it's another good reason to keep everything in place and keep it up and steady. Okay. All right, so you have to start somewhere. So it's kind of like planting a garden. What can you put next to each other? What are root vegetables? What are vine vegetables? What grow up? What grow out? What do you plant when? How many times can you plant a certain vegetable, and when do you clean out that area and replant it, like lettuce, that type of thing? So I think in our world, gardening is a good parallel to the work we do. All right, so let's look at some of the emergent issues and some of the urgent issues. So the emergents on your left, and the big ones is falls, elopement, any elder abuse, any explosive behaviors or property damage. So for instance, in a behavioral health community, a guy went crazy and tore up his room, and put holes in the walls and trashed his furniture and everything. And getting the right behavioral health in place, getting him on a hold, getting him care in a mental health hospital, which was the biggest challenge. And then whether or not he could even come back, that type of thing. Or property damage, or financial exploitation of each other, resident to resident exploitation, or staff to resident exploitation. We've seen that also happen. And then how did you do your plan of correction? So when I come in 2 weeks, when you join me again, I will walk you through how to write a very effective 1-page plan of correction that's doable, distinct, and we'll get you through what the health department needs to hear. On the yellow box, these are some of your urgent things you got to deal with quickly. So any death in the facility that's not hospice related, any discharges, whether they are voluntary or involuntary, any new admissions, making sure you've got all that stuff together, identifying socioeconomic needs or social needs, getting people re-engaged in the community, back to volunteer work, back to libraries as that stuff continues to open up, and then continuing to have discussions with your families. The other concept I want to bring back around is I want to talk about KPIs. So again, you're doing this, you're just not taking credit for the work you're doing. So a key performance indicator is how you keep your business afloat. So if you own your business, you even do more KPIs than if you're an administrator for somebody else that owns your business. But when you're an administrator for a corporate, you have reporting things. You have the budget, your income, your expenditures, your staff costs, your training costs, your overtime costs. So you definitely have business relationships one way or the other, okay? And then are your resident services working? Is the plant in good condition? How's the community perceive you? So you have to find time, check your brochures, check your website, check your, make sure that all of the things you do, all the papers you use are current and modern, okay? Some potential topics are over here on the left or on the right, and we've talked about all of them. And so one of your goals, one of your KPI goals is you really want to get staff turnover way down. And so if we get this money, this $1,600 that Polis put out there yesterday is actually for our industry as well as the restaurant industry. We are going to do a massive industry push to apply for that. I think, it shouldn't just go to the restaurant industry by itself. All right. So sometimes when you're doing all this stuff, you just want to crawl under a rock, and you're going to all these conversations, and people are not tuning you out or just ignoring you totally, and you just like, who am I talking to? And so you may feel this way, and sometimes you just need to talk to somebody else and get peer-to-peer support, or call over here and talk it out with us. But you guys also need to make sure you have an active voice in your life. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about element 4. Element 4 in quality, in the scheme of things under chapter 2, is the investigation phase. Okay. So we have 2 avenues. So you're on I-70, and if you're going down under Globeville, now you're in a high-risk area to get yourself hit or to hit one of their workers, because it is something we have not done, and it's going to be totally new in our lives, and I think it's going to be accident-prone for a long time when that thing totally opens up. Or these new HOA lanes, like the one to Boulder that they put a couple of years ago, or the one on I-25 when you're coming south, and it just gets wacky there around 58th, and you're trying to figure out if you're going on I-76 in the HOA or back on down on I-25. Until you get used to it, it's a high risk. And so when you're doing things in your community, remember you always start out with an investigation. And the investigation, again, next month I'll be talking a lot about it. How do you do a very effective, thorough, but doesn't eat up so much time investigation? How do you document it? How do you review it? And then what do you conclude from it? Are you going to make course corrections, or are you just going to do more training? And it's not that the staff person was sent to QMAP training again. That is not going to fly in the future. You will have to have a much better plan. And then how do you evaluate if it even worked? Okay. What are some of your potential risk issues? So for instance, a resident gets really upset with another resident. How do you do mediation? How do you keep them so busy they don't have time to get into altercations with each other? How do you keep your staff from not getting in an altercation with a resident? Or how do you have an agency that comes to see you not get into an altercation with your staff? We've had all of that in the last 6 weeks. All of those kinds of things have happened in our industry. Okay. So part 5 is how do you fix it? And please don't put your head in the sand like the emu and try to look underground. You're going to need to get on top of things and actually attack it from the surface and not ignore it anymore. Okay. So I want you to be like a bee. You're going to get started. So when bees are out looking for pollen, they go to places that they have been to before, for somehow they have sensors and they have an incredible smell, and they can smell different pollens, and they will go to the ones that they are building their hive with. And so bees are really good animals to teach your staff, because we actually function very much like a bee when we're doing this work. So first of all, what's the issue? What in the world happened? What do I need to know? Who's all involved? Who's my partners? Who are the people I'm really irritated with? Who are the people that created this mess in the first place, and why did they create it? And why did they react the way they did? How fast do I have to repair it? Do I got to make it like happen in 2 hours, like I had a sudden death and we didn't find it until morning? I've only got a couple hours to get that in the portal and call Cheryl. And so again, you need to get that occurrence book out. How fast does it got to be repaired? Or I was making the walks in the grounds and holy cow, my cement didn't hold up this winter. Or I got to do more landscaping, or I've got to make new visitation areas because I need more places for family visits and more outdoor activities and places that people can go. And so the new word for 2021 is called mitigate. And it's a buzzword like many other things like resilience. So mitigate is one of those things. How do you mitigate it? So when you have hornets, you're going to get a hornet's nest in a place you don't want it. And then that is a issue for your residents. And bees are really important, especially honeybees, to keep pollinating things so that things keep growing and that we keep our farms and our gardens and stuff working. So knowing what we need to do is important. And same thing that I was discovering yesterday at my house, I had found 2 nests of brown recluse spiders. I haven't had them in several years. So I will be calling the guy that got rid of them for me last time and come and work on that issue. All right, this is one of the tools that I'm used to using for outlining or mapping the process. So I just want you to know there's multiple tools out there. And all you got to do in Google is put QAPI tools and it will bring up, or in Pinterest. I have been finding so many business tools in Pinterest, it's really cool. This just be one of them. It's actually 3 pages. And it's a mapping process or walk you through from step 1 to step 7. And so I just wanted you to know that there are tools out there to use if you so desire. Okay. In element 5, you take your tool and you start looking at what are you going to do with the information you got together. That's called a corrective action. So again, next time we all meet, I'll be talking more about how to do effective, very focused, and not time-consuming corrective actions. Sometimes we get so over-focused on a correction that we lose sight of everything else. That's what COVID did to us. COVID really crashed our normal business processes. We put all our energy, we were pivoting every day like a lazy Susan, and we weren't really getting anywhere. So I would say April through late August last year, we really didn't get anywhere other than crisis management. And it would, this information come in, that information come in, this information that come in. This tool was requested. These processes were put in place. We had to scramble for toilet paper. We had to scramble for paper towel. We had to scramble for masks. We had to find money. We had to get money to pay payroll. We had overtime coming out of our ears. All we did last year was crisis management. I don't want to go back to there this year. I would like to get back on course, figure out what you need, and I'm glad to help any agency that needs to talk this out further. Okay. So part of this whole process you're in right now is also looking at your SMART goals. And so just as a reminder, they're sensible. Can you do it? They're measurable. How do you know you got it done in the first place? They're attainable. They're realistic, and they're timely. So I'm going to give you an example. You got to class today on time, using the email, signing into Zoom, joining me, and checking in the chat. Those were all, that was a very smart goal that you just did and wasn't that hard. And you showed enough interest that it's important to you that you want to continue to grow in this area. In anything you're doing, you can use SMART goals. They do not have to be fancy. They do not need to be legalese. And I always, when I do SMART goals, I always do, what time frame do I need to get this done? So I have over 14 referrals of families right now in trouble with various things. And so I've got them prioritizing what time frame I need to get these done. What parts do need to be done by a certain time? How do I communicate it to them? Can we realistically make this happen? And then is it attainable? And so for these 14 families I'm helping, all of them have attainable goals now, and we can get it done. And we'll be able to measure it by the time we get the process completed. That's the measurability. So let me give an example in assisted living. Let's say the people are not eating really well and that they're just sick of the food. So you might have a goal that we will meet anybody that wants to participate in this on Friday morning at 10 o'clock. I'll put a sign out that if you want to participate in helping to make the menu for the next 2 weeks, please meet in the dining room at 10 a.m. And then you'll give them, foods that they've been eating. Don't worry about sides right at the moment. Worry about entrees and desserts, the 2 favorite things of life. And have them rate them. Are they, they want to see them continue. They want to decrease the amount of times they're eating them. They want something new. And then you can take those results and you can look at the main ingredients and what can you make new? What can you make different? And it hits 3 goals. It's an activity for the residents. It is resident satisfaction and working on ways to boost appetite, because we've had a lot of weight loss and a lot of nutritional losses with COVID. And especially since we started getting the vaccines, people are really low in vitamins and minerals and protein. And so we can do this. It has a lot of good outcomes, and you can still stay in budget. You don't have to get that we want prime rib. And that's what one facility told me. Why everybody said they'll want prime rib. I said, yeah, you just have to let them know that that's not an option on the menu except for holidays. And so we have to stay within the core proteins that we have to work with. And one facility was talking to me, and they were serving a lot of salads. People weren't eating them. So we switched over to soups, and soup's gone every night. And so they make a soup of the day, and people are eating it like crazy. And they just needed a change. They wanted something lighter, something more digestible. So again, don't think this has to be hard. Okay. All right. So for next month, by attending, you'll get the packet of stuff I put together, including the slides. You're always welcome to call me. And I want you to look through that survey tool and say, okay, we've got this. It's in good shape. It's current. It's modern. Or all the way to the other end, we haven't even tackled this at all for 2 years or 3 years, and we've got to get caught up. Take and just rank them. That's all I'm asking you to do. If you have anything that's in immediate jeopardy, toenails not being done, decubitus ulcers, people that are falling, your high risk issues, are they a high risk or is it a low risk? Anything that's high risk, put an R by it, and then take that and make a list on a separate piece of paper. And if you can get that far, that's a good place to be. If you need help with the next box, give me a call. I'll help walk you through it, because you're all in various places. Some of you may not have any R's at all, no high risk, and you're in good shape. Others of you may have more than you wanted to know about. If you have a lot of medium risk, then go through those and say, okay, this summer, these are the things we've got to get accomplished. Or by July, we've got to get this done. Pay attention to resident services first, and then your plant management and staff education. And then, like I said, if you will stay steady on COVID, keep up your makeup, keep up your documentation, keep checking people in, scan all those stupid sign-in sheets and put them on a thumb drive and have them available if the state asks for them. And then you can shred anything that's over 30 days, you can shred that old stuff, but you have it available in a file. So states say, oh, where's these records? You can say, oh, I'm glad to share it. Sit down and I'll put it on your laptop. Please, guys, do not let anybody look at your laptop. That is private. And if you hand it to a surveyor, they can look at anything on there. Do not get caught in that. If you don't have something that the surveyors can use, for God's sakes, find $100 and buy a tablet. Android tablets are on clearance right now, and they're very low cost. You can buy them on eBay. You can buy them at the computer store over here in the west side of town where they refurbish them. You can buy them on Amazon. Best Buy's got a bunch on sale. Micro Center's got a bunch on sale. Target's got some on sale because all the new stuff's coming out. So it all hits the market at the end of the month. So they're going to do inventory clearance. This is a great time if you just need a simple tablet to have for business that you can put stuff on for surveyors. That's a good investment. You can write it off. Okay. So survey readiness. This is what all the meetings I've been to, these were the top 10. So mitigation, fire drills not being done appropriately, staff competency, HR records. I don't know why we keep finding HR records not in good order. Okay. Your training tool, I recommend you do a topic and have everybody sign it. Remember that when somebody signs something, in your policy, your signature on the training tool means that you take responsibility for the information. If you need more information, you just tell me, I will help you find it. Same thing on orientation topics, so that you are making sure that signature is their agreement and word that they get it, okay? Reporting, and that's that critical incident report that I didn't know about. Your COVID policies, if you need more help or you need my slides from last time I talked, I'm glad to give them to you. What's your quality management plan? Have you started it? Have you got one? You just need to revise it. And then what I'm going to be working on in July is a brand new emergency preparedness plan. I've got the notebook. It's 150 some pages to go through. And so I'm going to go through the dang thing, and we will train on that in July on how to have a modern emergency manual, because things have changed. And then as an administrator, do you got it? Do you understand it? How comfortable are you with all this? And as I've said multiple times, being an administrator is not for the faint of heart anymore. Okay. So we'll continue QMP. And if there's enough interest, I may rerun the whole series, summer and fall. And we'll see if I have enough interest for people to want to do that. And thank you for coming today. I'm going to go to the chat room and answer any questions that might be there. And anything that you need more information or concerns about. So feel free to put it in the chat. No questions. You guys are good today. I'm amazed. All right, so thank you for coming today. No, the single entry point is not responsible for the critical incident report, Erica. You are. You must get it to the single entry point. They put in their 28 cents, and then they send it to CDPHE, but you are responsible to start it. And yes, Kendall, the presentation is available, and you can have the slides. Any other questions? All right, guys, I will, June 3rd is the next presentation. It's also a Thursday afternoon, and I hope to see you all again in a couple of weeks. Thanks for coming today.